Checkpoint, let's continue with the broadcast. Now, after a series of gangland-style killings that left 7 directors dead and 5 others missing without a trace for more than 6 years now, members of the Murang'a County-based Kehio Mwiri Land Buying Company finally got title deeds following a directive by President Uhuru Kenyatta, which also disbanded the company back in 2015. The issuance opened yet another front line for the battle of ownership of this piece of land. A shoddy job done by land surveyors who were tasked with subdividing the 1,285 acres as captured in court documents has now seen members sit on pieces of land without proper documentation, while in some cases, foreigners who are not bona fide members of the company own land. The residents of the troubled Kehio Mwiri told KTN News that a new wave of killings may not be far off, but this time it will be killings between themselves. The killings of its directors and the fraud where they lost close to 200 acres of land are a well-schemed plot that involves powerful people in government working with surveyors and well-known lawyers to hide their unholy alliance. Our reporter Fred Kagonye with that special story for us, Kehio Mwiri Landmine.
Kitambo nikimbia kwa nyumba, mama kanivuruta nyuma, kaniambia hao watu wako kwa nyumba na ni wawili na wako na bunduki.
Akanieleza, unaona ile gari, hakunionyesha na mkono, alinionyesha na mdomo. Naona hiyo gari iko hapo. Wamesema the broker coming is the one.
Shamba niko naye, hata nyumba nimeshajenga na kumaliza kujenga, nikagojea title.
Sasa hivi wameondoa kutoka kwa directors, sasa wamerudisha kwa wananchi.
Nataka justice kwa sababu hakukuwa na justification ya kuua my father.
Justice ya Kehio Mwiri lazima itapatikana.
Kehio Mwiri in Murang'a County, a prime piece of land owing to its proximity to the Nyeri Highway. But away from that lies a dark story of betrayal, kidnapping and the killing of land directors. KTN News has been to Kehio Mwiri a number of times to check on the lives of the people in this area that hit the headlines between 2012 and 2015 for bloody reasons. The elimination of its directors in a gangland style of killing sent shockwaves around the country. After all, this style of killings is one that we only watch in movies and read about in books. But for the residents here, the bloodbath had become a new way of living. The killings got the attention of President Uhuru Kenyatta, as they should. After all, the name Kehio Mwiri is named after the man who underwent initiation with his father and Kenya's first president, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. In the Kikuyu dialect, Kehio Mwiri simply means a knife into the body. And true to its meaning, the land buying company has been a pain into the bodies of its members.
Title deeds zao watazipata, ndipo sasa kila mtu ajue pahali pake.
In the year 2015, President Uhuru Kenyatta ordered the disbandment of the land buying company. He had seen enough of the killings and had heard the cry of the members. He ordered the issuance of title deeds and promised that action will be taken against the perpetrators of these killings.
Wale ambao wamefanya maovu mpaka kuchukua maisha ya watu wasifikirie watalala salama, kwa sababu bado tutaendelea kuwatafuta.
The people of Kehio Mwiri now fear that the title deeds that were issued back in the year 2015 could be a catalyst to a new wave of killings. But this time round, it will be killings between themselves.
Benson Ngumi, was the first director killed. He was on his way home when he was accosted by a gang that beat him to death in one of the coffee farms in Guinea. Sources say he was accused of selling coffee belonging to members and keeping the money for himself. Everything went well until 2009, when the then chairperson Peter Kariuki Macharia is said to have brokered a deal with powerful people in the national government and sold a piece of Kehio Mwere. His then secretary, Francis Kamau Mwaura, told KTN News that he was opposed to the sale, and this led to his kidnapping.
Ndarikia guteo gatuanyaga nindonirwo ni andu mai na gakari kanini ka personal moka magikinjoya makindehe kinya guku muciiri guku.
His tribulations did not end there. After his constant refusal to append his signature for the sale, a gang accosted him on his way home and beat him senselessly, leaving him for the dead. He claims that his signature, which appears in a sale agreement seen by KTN News, was forged, since at the time the sale took place, he was admitted at the Thika Level 5 hospital after the attack. Peter Kariuki Macharia was kicked out and replaced with Peter Kimani Kuria. The Kariuki-led group refused to vacate office and hand over documents to the new board. This led to wrangles between the old board and the newly elected board, which residents told KTN News was asking questions on the secrecy surrounding the sale and where the money went to. The company ran with two boards in place, and the Kimani-led group accused the Kariuki-led group of selling land and eating the money. A battle that ended up in the corridors of justice, a matter that Peter Kimani Kuria won. Not long after the conclusion of the matter, Peter Kimani Kuria was arrested and charged with robbery with violence, a move his son says was meant to intimidate him for his constant fight for the truth surrounding the sale.
Sasa mwenye alikatakatwa alikuwa hospitali. Alipopona akaitwa kotini. Akaulizwa sasa kaniwa identify wale watu walimkatakata, akaonyeshwa wakina mzee pale wakiwa kwa doko. Akasema mimi hata watu siwajui.
Fast forward to February 2014, Wilfred Mwangi Gishana alias Ibrahim was killed by a gang in his Ebenezer home. This sent shockwaves on both camps who are trading accusations on who is behind these killings. March 2014, three men are called for a meeting at one of the hotels in Thika town. Little did they know that this would be the last time they will be seen by their family members and friends. According to witnesses, the three identified as Solomon Gakau, James Kimaru and Job Mwangi Ngumi were picked up by people who introduced themselves as police officers, and that became that. They have never been seen since then. Job Mwangi is the son to Benson Ngumi. Not long after, Newton Shege Muhoro disappeared without a trace, bringing to fore the number of those missing or kidnapped. A man named Henry Ngoge alias Mweneshio was among those charged with his kidnapping, but as captured in court documents, there was no way Ngoge would have kidnapped Muhoro, because when Muhoro disappeared, Ngoge was in custody for trespass and destruction of property belonging to Breeze Investments Limited. He told KTN News in an off-camera interview that he had been released on bond, but he withdrew it after he was marked for death, saying he felt safer in prison than on the outside. Charles Ngoge Kamau was the next victim. He was killed by a gang at his Wemba home, which is not far from Kehio Mwere. In May 10, 2015, the duly elected chairperson Peter Kimani Kuria was killed in his home in Greyston area. His son Paul Getao Kimani witnessed the killing. He says that he had just left his father's house when he heard gunshots.
Kitambo nikimbie kwa nyumba, mama kanivuruta nyuma, kaniambia hao watu wako kwa nyumba na ni wawili na wako na bunduki. Saa hizo nikasikia risasi ya pili na ya tatu pia. Kaa tena ya nne ikalia. Bado nikiwa nasikiza.
Getao says that he identified the men who killed his father. They were his friends and he schooled with them. When 16 suspects were arrested and arraigned in court in connection with the murders of directors, Getao, who was a star witness in his father's murder, says that his testimony regarding his killers was useless, since the investigations were bungled from the onset. In his judgment on the matter, Justice Joel Ngogi said that the evidence given by Getao was not credible. He says when the initial statements were recorded, Getao did not name the killers or disclose that he had identified any of them. He says that it was suspect that Getao withheld information about his father's killers for more than a year, claiming that he had been warned that policemen were involved in the killings. Justice Ngoge noted that one of the accused was Getao's cousin, which gave him another avenue to voice his testimony. Justice Ngoge also faulted the prosecution, posing why did they not produce Kimani's wife, Josephine Wambui. After all, her son had claimed in his testimony that she held a brief conversation with the killers as they made their way into her home, where they would later kill her husband. Peter Kimani Kuria had been threatened several times and reported the threats to the police. On the evening of June 28, 2018, Paul Muhohi Bernard was killed in Thika's Majengo estate. Muhohi had stopped over at the shop where his wife Jane Wambui worked, and she says she saw him off at around 5 p.m. She told the court that Muhohi feared for his life after he had been threatened several times. Peter Kariuki Macharia, who was voted out as the chairperson of the land buying company, went missing. It is suspected that he was kidnapped on his way home. He had just left his Thika office and the last signal on his phone was traced to Ndarugo. Macharia had promised to grant an interview to a local media house on Matters Kihumure the following day. The shell of his burnt car was later found in Tigoni, Rimuru. 28 days later, on the morning of July 29, the angel of death struck again. Zachary Shege Kiratu and his friend Josephat Kibe were on their way to meet the then Land CS Dr. Fred Matiang'i on Matters Kihumure. At around 6:30, the two who were riding a motorcycle were shot dead.
Luckily, siwa walikuwa na document. I was the custodian of it. But with nobody else, kuna mtu alikuwa anajua venye tulikuwa tunafanya hiyo kazi. Sasa lakini hatukusimama na kazi. The following day, nikaenda at the house na chairman. Mzee mwingine anaitwa Faris Joroge Mwangi. Tukamua company, tukaenda at the house, tukaderiva hiyo document. Na mambo ikaendelea.
It was revealed in court that police bungled the investigations of those killed and the kidnapped as well. The residents believe that if police did their work well, the real culprits would have been arrested and brought to book.
Sababu hakuna mtu anaweza kufia hapa na ikataliwa kushika mtu yaliyo. Ni baka siku aliyoliwa. Kwa nini wanataka hapa kwenda kuleta mtu Uganda na wanamkamata aliyefanya kitendo? Fikiria mambo ya Kenya, unakufia pale na unaonekana unakufa na ushahidi unapotea.
Well, stay tuned for